Hello and welcome to our session, Implicit Bias in Mathematics, a series for PK-12 educators. My name is Denise Green from the Monterey County Office of Education. And I'm joined today by my colleagues.
My name is Gloria Brown Brooks. I'm a director at Toto's Mathematics for All and a member of the Instructional Leadership Corps.
My name is Jenny Chang. I'm a mathematics coordinator at the Santa Clara County Office of Education.
Hello, my name is Melissa Gilbert. I'm a project coordinator and research associate at the Stanford Center for Opportunity Policy and Education. And I'm one of the project coordinators for the Instructional Leadership Corps.
We are excited to be showcasing our work with you today. And our team extends beyond just the four of us here. We represent a 13-member regional team spanning across 4 counties and several mathematics-focused organizations across the San Francisco and Monterey Bay areas. In the next hour, you will be engaging in an abbreviated simulation of a 3-part professional learning series that was offered between October 2019 and March 2020 across 4 Bay Area counties. The Implicit Bias in Mathematics series was a first of its kind in the region. And because it was so well received, our team felt that our learning and resources should be shared widely to educators who not only want to engage in it from a personal and professional growth standpoint, but also want to think about how to bring this complex work to your school or district. Before we dive into this work, we'd like to invite you to gather a few items to ensure as smooth and uninterrupted a learning experience as possible. Just like in our 3-part series, our participants engaged in this work through journaling, self-reflection, situational analysis, and focused dialogue. While this experience was adapted for this asynchronous and shortened session, we are confident that you'll be able to have a meaningful experience with the following items on hand. Please take a moment to turn on your audio and your visual components. Secure a space for personal thinking and reflection. This can be physical, like a journal, or a digital note space. And open this session's Jamboard for shared thinking and reflection in another tab or window at bit.ly/IBCMC20jam. That's the bit.ly on the slides right here, bit.ly/IBCMC20jam. Note that there are 2 icons on this slide that you will see at different times throughout the presentation. In the center, the gray icon indicates a personal reflection activity, and the Jamboard icon on the right indicates an asynchronous collaborative activity. Please pause the video now to complete the above and unpause the video when you are ready to continue. Let's continue. All of today's resources are accessible at the bit.ly above, bit.ly/IBCMC2020, or via the QR code. You will also find the resources from our complete 3-part series in that folder. So without further ado, let's dig into implicit bias in mathematics.
Thank you, Denise. We will begin by watching a 2-minute or less, really, clip. Please have your writing tool and paper or electronic note-taking device close by to jot down what you notice and wonder. We encourage you to watch the video clip twice. The first time to simply enjoy, and the second time to jot down what you notice and wonder. If you prefer to watch this video directly, you can access it at the link shown on the slide or on the session handout. Please now pause this session video and visit the link on the screen. The link will take you to our session's Jamboard. Please go to frame number 2 and insert sticky notes to respond to the 4 reflective questions. Unpause the video when you have finished responding to the questions on frame number 2. Humans are equipped with massively powerful brains that are capable of processing approximately 11 million bits of information every second. However, only 40 bits of information can be consciously processed at any one time. In other words, our unconscious mind is processing much more than our conscious mind. Things such as whether we take the escalator or the stairs, our wake-up routine, or the commute into work become routine and subconscious over time. Even the brand of soda we buy and drink can be a result of a subconscious behavior. We have conditioned ourselves to perform and behave in certain ways to free up mental energies to focus on other things. Other tasks, such as who to delegate responsibilities to or what to write in an email, requires a more conscious effort with critical thought. And while most unconscious actions and behaviors do not create harmful implicit bias, others create a ripple effect that impact the lives of those we work, live, and interact with throughout our lifetime. This video about musical piano stairs highlights the fact that all humans operate on unconscious bias. Unconscious bias is automatic default behaviors that over time we have been subconsciously conditioned to do. This bias in turn affects our behavior, and we have to take deliberate steps to become aware of these biases and change behaviors. Many of us tend to think about our own unique individual thoughts and feelings, but the reality is that our collective meaning is also at play. This includes everything from tastes like chicken to the intergenerational way in which racial stereotypes exist. If we look at a list of racial stereotypes from decades or even centuries ago, they would still seem quite familiar. This is not to say that they are a part of our conscious minds or that we would choose to have them be a part of our subconscious. Brain research is showing us that only 2% of emotional cognition is available consciously. It is almost playing out unconsciously. Racial bias tends to be in the unconscious network. We unconsciously have tapes about race playing in the background, even when we aren't discussing it. Our work in this 3-part series is about exploring how these automatic and unconscious habits of ours become our bias. Again, we all have bias. Our biases help us navigate our world in many ways. And the purpose of today's work is to help surface the ways in which our biases impact those around us. Your engagement with this session may inspire you to take notice and lead to a change, just like the musical piano stairs drew many more people to take the stairs than would do so based on their implicit biases. The work we engage in today requires reflection and practice. It takes time and patience. It is not meant to be prescriptive, but rather ideas for ongoing consideration.
Start with why. One place to start unpacking implicit biases begins with asking ourselves, why are you here today? In other words, when you saw the session title and description, what about this topic caught your interest? Additionally, when we begin to ask ourselves why we're here in this session, we begin to unpack the next question at a deeper level. How might our unconscious attitudes and belief systems affect our behavior as math teachers, and what can we do about it? When we know our why, the how and the what are a little more clear. Pause this video to complete your personal reflection and unpause when you are ready. About the series, Session 1, establish a safe place for learning and networking. Promote self-analysis to understand implicit bias. Session 2, identify how implicit bias impacts instruction curriculum, school policies, and student achievement. Session 3, pinpoint strategies to ameliorate effects of bias. As a series, we developed 4 outcomes that would be revealed across 3 sessions. Our learning environment: take space, make space. Build and maintain brave space. What is said here stays here. What is learned here leaves here. Offer what you can, ask for what you need. One mic, one conversation. Establish a safe place for learning and networking. That is our very first outcome. And while it is highlighted in session 1, know that the work we ask our participants to engage in could not have occurred unless our learning environment was built upon a place of safety and engaging for understanding. We offered these 6 norms as a starting point to create that space, and each cohort made amendments and additions to make it uniquely their own. Take a moment to review.
According to the census.gov website, there are currently 7.7 billion people in the world as of 2020. And with that many people in the world, no 2 people experience the world in the exact same way. We may have similar and even shared experiences, but even then, how we perceive that experience, as well as how we react to that experience, is as unique as our DNA. Why is that? How can 2 people who lived through the same experience perceive the situation so differently? For example, how do siblings who grow up in the same household, raised by the same parents or caregiver, share such different perspectives on their childhood experience? It's because we navigate this world through our lived experiences, and those experiences gives our brain a lot to process in rapid speed. Remember, our brains are capable of processing approximately 11 million bits of information every second. And in order to process that much information in that short of time, that requires our brain to create what psychologists call schemas. Think of them like file folders or categories in which the brain stores the massive amount of information it receives. Our brain uses the schemas to help organize, retrieve, and even code important information. These schemas accumulate over time and across a variety of experiences. The fascinating thing about schemas is that when we retrieve the information, we actually do it subconsciously. And over time, these schemas stabilize over time. As I said earlier, we navigate the world through our lived experiences, and each person's experience is as unique as their DNA. So who or what informs our experience? On the next slide, we introduce some of the influences on our lived experiences. Here, we are introduced to filters. Filters are like conduits in which we navigate our way through this world. Some may think of filters as ways we may self-identify, or the ways in which we may consciously or subconsciously identify others. Our filters guide our actions and behaviors over time. The schemas that we refer to over and over again and are familiar with become reinforced. Take birth order, for example. Are you the eldest in the family? Or perhaps the youngest? And depending on family dynamics, being the eldest may have led others to categorize you as a know-it-all. Or maybe they thought you were very responsible. Or maybe you have a very take charge mentality. Or perhaps you are the youngest and folks perceive you to be the one who's always being catered to or having the least amount of responsibilities. Of course, many of these characteristics are extremely generalized, and that is exactly how filters work. Over time, we have ample exposure to different people, and as a mechanism for making sense of the world at a rapid speed, our brain's neural pathways develop implicit associations, which begin to create schemas to quickly sort this information and makes it readily available for us to refer to the next time we encounter a similar experience. Another filter is ableness, which refers to the state of being able and one's ability of body or mind, force, and vigor. When we experience the world as a physically able-bodied person, we have an immense increase to access to features such as transportation, buildings, and services. Take a moment and consider what barriers and experiences one might have if they traverse the world with partial vision or is legally blind. Our filters help us make sense of our world. Oftentimes, we do not stop to consider how those neural pathways are unconsciously being built and implicitly reinforced over time. Additionally, when we interact with others, especially those whom we have immense influence on, those filters affect the ways we see, behave, and act in the world, which unconsciously inform our biases. Those biases begin to seep into the language we use, the routines we create, and even the instructional strategies and decisions we choose or choose not to use in our classrooms. So take a moment and ask yourself the following. How do your filters impact the way you view the world, your students? How does your gender identity, culture, and race influence the ways in which you navigate the world? How might your sexual orientation and socioeconomic status attribute to the attitudes and behaviors that guide your decision-making and lifestyle? When we consider the implications on a mathematics classroom, how might those same filters guide the instructional decisions that impact the development of classroom norms, expectations, and curricula? Pause this video now to complete your personal reflection and unpause when you are ready. The following quote comes from a blog post from the National Equity Project.
Each of us needs to look in the mirror to notice how our particular lived experiences have shaped our beliefs, attitudes, and biases about ourselves and others. We also need to look out the window to understand how racism, classism, and sexism, and other forms of systemic oppression operate in our institutions to create systemic advantage for some groups and disadvantage for other groups in every sector of community life.
We invite you to keep this quote in mind as we transition to our next activity with Gloria.
Identifying bias, an example. In this next activity, we work on identifying how implicit bias impacts instruction, curriculum, school policies, and student achievement. While self-reflection and internal analysis of how one's bias affects others, we must not forget that there is a deep-rooted structural and systematic racism at play. A careful examination of these practices and policies help us work towards dismantling centuries-old attitudes and policies that have never benefited our students of color, our English language learners, our students with disabilities, our families who experience homelessness, as well as our families whose incomes are below the federal policy threshold. In this activity, examine the image carefully. What bias might the graphic designers have about these professions? Please pause this video to complete your personal reflection and unpause when you are ready. Identifying bias, your turn. Choose an image, jot down biases you identify that might be problematic. As you notice the way implicit bias is evident in the image, take another moment, dig deeper, and think about how unconscious biases impact the way our students feel and see themselves as mathematicians. Please visit the Jamboard and go to frame 3 for this activity. Pause the video to complete the task and unpause when you are ready.
For our final activity of today, we invite you to explore the following scenarios as you navigate the ways to ameliorate the effects of bias on students. Preparing ourselves to respond to these scenarios helps us feel ready to identify and respond to implicit biases in the moment. The scenarios varied from planning and classroom strategies and materials to school-wide policies and practices. And we invite you to explore 4 samples of these scenarios. One sample is focused on student interaction, one around curriculum, one around placement practices, and one around pacing and content standards. Please visit the Jamboard frames 4 through 7 to explore and respond to the scenarios. Pause this video to complete the task and unpause when you are ready. The scenarios presented in the last activity were real lived experiences that many of our content developers have personally experienced. Situations like those can be quite common and occur when a coworker or a student uses biased language or stereotypes. Perhaps you wanted to speak up, but was unsure of how to address it. In the moment, you might have been caught off guard, struggle with what to respond or even how to respond. And in moments like these, we want to act swiftly in response to biased language. Thankfully, there are quality resources out there that can help us. The Teaching Tolerance Organization offers an amazing resource titled Speak Up at School. It is a practical guide that enables us to effectively address prejudice, bias, and stereotypes. The section titled In the Moment, which can be found on page 16, provides 4 basic strategies to use when responding in the moment. You can access this resource, which is hyperlinked to the images on the slides, as well as in the session folder. Additionally, there are sample responses for you to explore in the folder.
Wow, we have covered a lot in a very short time. As we come to the end of this session, we invite you to revisit your opening reflection. Why are you here today? We ask you to consider, what are your takeaways and next steps after this session? What is one action you can commit to? Pause the video to give yourself some time to reflect. And then when you're ready to start, hit play again.
This work would not have been possible without the collective expertise and experiences from our cross-county planning team. This 13-person team is representative of classroom educators, university professors, mathematics specialists from various organizations, and mathematics advocates from across the state. Additionally, our team is deeply indebted to Lisa Adams from the California Teachers Association for her consultation and guidance in the series creation. Lastly, this series could not have been possible without funding through the California Partnership for Mathematics and Science Education and the S.D. Bechtel Jr. Foundation.
Thank you for joining us today and engaging in this complex and critical work. We hope you found this session helpful in reflecting on identifying how implicit bias impacts students and how we might begin to address bias. Our resources are available at bit.ly/IBCMC2020. Feel free to contact any of us with any questions, and thank you again for including us in your personal and professional journey. We hope to see you again soon.